This is a re-upload of my previous video describing 9 months and 6,000 miles with my MG ZS EV. The audio was really bad on the first attempt, so if you've already seen it, you probably don't need to watch it again, but of course you're more than welcome to. I didn't redo this bit, which is why this audio doesn't really go with this video. Yep, that's right. 9 months and we have 6,181 miles on the clock. And on the whole, not a huge amount to report. It's not going to be a very dramatic one, this one, I don't think. Certainly my ownership experience has been fairly good so far. The last time I talked to you about the ZS EV was at the 3-month mark, 3 months and 1,500 miles, and an awful lot of you did watch that video. It's had over 20,000 views now, and it seemed to really divide opinion. Certainly seemed to get some of you quite worked up in the comments. So the main focus in that one was I was a bit annoyed that one of the parcel shelf clips had broken, and I was moaning a lot about the infotainment. Two things that, I wasn't particularly happy with. I think the parcel shelf thing still, it's not something you expect to break on such a young car, such a low mileage car. And the infotainment, well, we'll talk a bit more about that later in this video. But some of the comments I had on that were just brilliant. So I had one person in particular was like, oh, Kia must have paid you to make this video, hadn't they? I don't quite know where you get that logic from. I mean, I think if Kia were paying me to make YouTube videos, they would probably have me driving a Kia, not an MG. Just for the record, I own this car. I bought this car with my own money. There's no other vested interest here. I went into an MG dealership with £22,500 and I drove this car away. And if you don't want the truth, and if you want me to tell you that everything's rosy, it's probably not the channel for you, to be honest, because if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm very much about giving you a very honest viewpoint. And I think at least some of you definitely appreciate that. And that's why you're here. And that's where we're going to continue. So this car has been my daily driver for those 9 months. It's been very mixed use, typical sort of family car type use. It gets me back and forward to work locally when I'm doing the supermarket delivery driving stuff. It gets me back and forward on my ridiculous commute for my actual day job as an IT consultant. I primarily work from home, but do occasionally need to make the 110 miles each way trip. I've got one of those commutes, I think, that the petrol and diesel boys idolise and seem to think every working person in the country needs to travel that far for work. This car is very capable of doing that, even in the depths of winter. If you haven't seen the winter range test video, I would definitely recommend it, where you can see that it will do those longer journeys with the heater on and without sort of scrimping too much on any of the auxiliaries. I definitely don't believe in spending 20-odd thousand pounds on a car and then driving around freezing cold or roasting hot because you're scared to use the heater or the aircon. That's definitely not my style. It's taken us on holidays, fully loaded with luggage and pets and what have you. And it's just generally been an all-round decent daily driver. It's been in a couple of times for some warranty work. And if you're interested in the MG Aftersales experience, you'll definitely want to keep watching to hear about how that went. So efficiency and range then, always a hot topic with electric vehicles. Everybody likes to talk about range and, how many miles do you get out of it and all that stuff. Now, what I will say is in the winter, you want to prepare yourself for a little bit of a drop in range. I saw economy of 3 to 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. That gives you a practical usable range of sort of 125 to 135 miles. Fairly common for EVs to drop from their published WLTP range in the winter. I don't think that should be a surprise to you. In fact, I think some models are actually known for being worse than that and suffering from a greater drop in efficiency in the winter. So I think the cold weather performance of this is pretty good. And as I said before, it's pretty much using the air conditioning and the heater pretty much all the time. Not deviating from that, not turning it off to save a little bit. So yeah, 3 to 3.2, 125 to 135 miles in the winter. As we move through the spring into the summer, the efficiency improves dramatically, and you almost see that sort of overnight as the weather improves and it warms up. We see sort of 3.8 to 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and that's without even really trying. That's with driving, not crazily, but not particularly gently either. That's just sort of normal, everyday mixed driving. I'm seeing sort of 3.8 to 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and that's where we're pretty much bang on the advertised WLTP range then, sort of 160 to 170 miles, 163 being the advertised range for this car. So I think in the summer, it's pretty much bang on. It's exactly what you'd expect, and I'm more than happy with that. So let's talk about what's good and what's bad then about the ZS EV. Now that I've had it for a bit longer, I can probably pass a bit better judgment on it. Comfort and practicality for me are the main points that I think make it stand out amongst its competition. It's a very comfortable car. I've cracked out long journeys in it. No problem at all, exactly as you expect. These seats are comfortable, they're supportive. I wasn't sure about the fake leather to start with, but it's absolutely no problem at all. Definitely in terms of comfort, it's much more comfortable than, so we've got a BMW i3 in the household fleet as well, and I tried using that for my crazy commute once, and it's nowhere near in terms of comfort. The ride quality in this is also a bit on the softer side. It wallows about a little bit, which can be to a sort of disadvantage if you're pressing on, but it definitely adds to that comfort if you're just cruising, if you're not trying to break the land speed record. And I think comfort's a definite plus point. And then, of course, practicality. You'll seat 4 adults in here in comfort, and then you've got a decent sized boot as well. So it swallows up suitcases or whatever you need to carry around. And if you really have a lot of crap to carry around, you've got roof bars, which will, unlike the MG5, you'll have a 75 kilogram roof load rating as opposed to the 35 on the MG5. So it will take everything you're going to throw at it. And I think as a sort of practical family car, you can't go wrong at all. And it's probably even more practical than likes of the Hyundai Kona or the e-Niro, because I believe the boot is bigger. So for less money, you're actually getting more in terms of practicality, which is just fantastic. You've got to hand it to MG, really. At this price point, they've absolutely nailed it from both comfort and practicality. Can't fault it at all. On the note of long journeys and comfort, I think one of the negative points is the lack of automatic climate control. Now, I know you're going to say in the comments, well, you knew it didn't have that when you bought it, and yes, that's absolutely correct. I knew it didn't have automatic climate control, but I think once you've had a car that has it, you start to realise actually quite how good a feature that is. And it's only when you are on a longer journey and you're constantly tweaking the temperature because 1 minute it's too cold, 1 minute it's too warm, and finding a balance is quite difficult. You definitely miss that automatic climate, and I certainly hope that MG realise that and include that in maybe in a future facelift model. I know that the MG5 has it in the exclusive specification, so hopefully it could make it to the ZS as well, and that would definitely round things off a little bit. And then we couldn't talk about bad points of this car without talking about infotainment. And I know it's got better infotainment than what was in your Austin Maxi, but that doesn't mean it's acceptable for a 2021 car, 2021 car to be this rubbish in terms of the way the infotainment system performs. Now, one of the biggest sort of gripes I have with it, I completely ignoring the built-in sat-nav and stuff, because as I said before, I don't use it. I use CarPlay instead and let my phone do the heavy lifting, which definitely improves the performance, but it will still sometimes freeze up, or it'll crash and just return to the home screen, and your phone will disconnect itself, and it doesn't do it very often, but when it does, it's just so annoying having to fiddle about with it to get it working again. Now, I do believe MG have recently released an update through the dealer network that fixes some of these issues and cures some of the crashing problems and stuff with the infotainment. So hopefully we'll get that update applied when this car goes in for its first service, and that might improve things. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's not. But is it an irritant, and is it something that they should have done better with? Definitely. I think it can also become a safety issue as well. So sometimes when you adjust the temperature or the fan speed, it doesn't bring up the display telling you what it's set to. It'll just carry on showing you your maps or your music. So you don't actually know what you've set the temperature to, and you're looking at the display for longer than you should, and you're waiting for it to catch up. It's far from ideal. But I think that probably says more about the over-reliance on LCD screens in modern cars. So I think we've got half, it's an MG software being a bit rubbish issue, but it's also half, why do we continue in modern cars to over-rely on these LCD screens? These are features that don't need to be dependent on a screen, and they weren't for so long in other cars. But that's a whole other rant entirely. So I've also noticed that the forward collision warning can be a little bit oversensitive. I find that it'll beep and it'll warn me in situations where you don't even feel like you even slightly need to brake at all, you know. I understand that these systems can be a little bit sensitive. I've actually turned down the sensitivity. It has a low, normal, and high sensitivity. I'd hate to see what it was like set to high. I've turned it down to low. We're going to leave that for a little bit longer, and we'll see where it goes. But so that brings us on to aftersales then, and I know that this will definitely be something you'll be very interested in. So I had to take this car back to MG to have a couple of issues sorted out. And I think if you watched my video where I sort of reviewed and, well, probably more slated the MG3 courtesy car that I had, you'll know that that was because it was in for some warranty repairs. And basically there were two issues, one of which was that there was a rattle from one of the A-pillars. The trim on the driver's A-pillar would rattle, and it would get worse if you had the heater on. It seems it was heating up, it was rattling more. I don't know, I guess it's just loose fitting plastic, gets even looser when it's warm. And the other issue is one that I'm seeing more and more ZS EV and actual petrol ZS owners as well complain about, which is a sort of click or a clunk in the steering. So if you're just steering sort of lightly to the left or the right, you know, you're not sort of putting much lock on, you're just sort of guiding it to the left or the right, it would sort of click, it would clunk, and they would just feel like there's just a little bit of play in the steering, and it would just, well, a little bit disconcerting. You know, you're like, is this going to fall apart? Is it, you know, is this actually okay to continue driving? So those were the two issues. I took it to the dealership, and on the first visit, they inspected the car, they took it for a road test. They acknowledged that there was an issue with the steering. They acknowledged that there was an issue with the A-pillar. And I'm always a bit apprehensive about taking cars in for rattles and complaints like that, because I've had experience with other manufacturers where actually it's an uphill struggle getting them to recognise there's faults. So straight away, MG were, yep, we totally get it. These two issues are definitely present, and we need to do something about them. The A-pillar they sorted out that day. I'm guessing they maybe just put some of that foam trim tape on it to make it a better fit. That's what they tend to do with things like that. But that's absolutely perfect. That's fully resolved. It hasn't made a chirp since. And on that visit, they said, we'll need to refer to MG Technical on the steering, and they will come back to us and let us know what to do with your car. So that was fair enough. Took the car back with its now silent A-pillar, but it's still dodgy steering. And 2 or 3 days later, true enough, they gave me a call and said, MG have told us what to do. We're going to replace your steering column, which I was really surprised at. So book it in, bring it in, and we'll get that done for you. That was when I had the black MG3 courtesy car that I did the review on, was when it went in to have the steering column replaced. And it's come back. It's been absolutely fine. I've done about 700 miles since, and it's been absolutely fine. So hopefully the issue is fully resolved. I've heard some people say that their steering issue came back, but then I don't know if they had a full replacement column, or if I've heard of some dealers just tightening things up and what have you. So time will tell on the fix, but all in all, the dealer was courteous, they were responsive, they were good to deal with. Getting a courtesy car was no problem, no question at all. I would fully recommend them. That dealer was Thompson First in Stroud. If you're in Gloucestershire and you need service from an MG dealer, I would fully recommend them all day long. I know that there seems to be a bit of inconsistency with MG dealerships, and there's a few people saying that they're really struggling to get good service. So certainly I think going on those recommendations and using dealers that others have said are really good and trying to avoid the bad ones should put you in better stead. Hopefully MG will improve the situation over time, but certainly if you know of a good dealer, let people know about it. let us know in the comments. If your dealer's really good, if your dealer's really bad, let us know, because I think it's very healthy to spread the word to other owners. And for me, Thompson, First and Stroud, absolutely spot on, and that's where it will go for its service. I didn't buy the car from them. That's definitely where it will be getting serviced. And any warranty issues, they seem really nice to deal with, and they were really prompt. The car is absolutely perfect now. Can't fault it at all in terms of those issues are fully sorted. But as time goes on, if that changes, I'll definitely let you know. So in summary then, the MG ZS EV, I still really like it. I'm very, very happy with it. Yes, it's a little bit rough around the edges, and I've said that before, but I think that's what you need to be willing to deal with if you're going to buy an MG. It's not a perfectly polished, perfectly rounded package, but I think that's what you're paying the extra £10,000–15,000 for if you go elsewhere. In theory, I mean, ask some VW ID3 owners about software updates and Tesla owners about panel gaps, right? But in theory, you're getting a better package, but you're paying a lot more money for it. What you do have is a perfectly agreeable, capable, practical electric car with enough range that you're not having to worry about charging all the time, unless you have, maybe a silly commute. Say you drive like 110 miles each way to get to your work, or that'll be the case if you buy any EV with a 40 kilowatt hour battery. Is that the battery size will be the limiting factor in your range. But once you get over that, buy the MG5, right, if you need more range. But all in all, the whole package, it's a very practical car. It's comfortable. It seems dependable. It's everything you need. And would I buy one again today? Absolutely. Absolutely I would. And the after-sales experience I had only reinforces that point. Now, I'm sure if I used a dealer that was absolute crap, I might think twice about that. But for me, would I buy another one? Definitely. Would I recommend it to someone? Definitely. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you now more likely to give a ZS EV a go? You going to go for a test drive? I definitely think you should. And if you're new here, if it's the first time you've seen any of my videos, please do check out my back catalogue. We've got a bit about ZS EV ownership, and we've got quite a lot about EV news and public charging. And definitely hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.